Okay, so we are on Mishlei Yud Aleph Lamed, and just for those who are listening, I guess, many of our regulars are not here tonight. So we're going to see if the dynamic changes radically here. Looks like we're missing, by my count, at least five regulars. So we'll see what happens. Okay. Pri tzadik eitz chaim v'lokeach nefashos chacham.
The fruit of a tzadik is like the tree of life.
The tree of life. Okay.
And it takes the soul of the chacham.
So lokeach nefashos. So plain shot is, and one who takes souls is a chacham, right? Is wise, right? Or is either wise or is a wise person. Yeah. Okay.
It's so funny. I could when you take souls, it's like.
Yeah. I don't think this.
Taking your soul.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's gonna say that. Okay. So we have. So that is the straight translation. Sadigon just clarifies lokeach is harochish, is one who acquires. Okay. So I'll say takes or acquires. Okay, which are very similar, but he felt the need to clarify. So Targum, I don't quite get. The Targum translates it as peroi de tzadika ilana dechai. So that first part is the same. The fruit of a tzadik is a tree of life. But then he says umakablanusa de nafshe, and one who wins souls chachmasa. Makablusa de nafshe chachmasa, of wisdom. So I think what he's doing is like this. I think he's saying the fruit of a tzaddik is a tree of life, and he wins souls of wisdom. In other words, I think he's trying to make this into one statement about the tzaddik, and to knock out the chacham part, because he translates chacham as chachmasa, as wisdom. Okay, so I don't know what to do with that, but that's just what the Targum says. Okay, let's look at the three English translations. Our scroll says, the fruit of a righteous one is a tree of life, and a wise man acquires souls. Okay, so that is a real ambiguity. Okay, let's actually let's do like this, version A and version B. Okay, and this is something that is just an inherent ambiguity in the Hebrew. So hold on just one second here. Yeah, so we have the fruit of a tzaddik is a tree of life, and a wise person acquires souls. Okay. So in other words, either it's making a statement, if you acquire souls, then you are wise, or it's saying a wise person this is what a wise person does. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if whatever. We'll have to decide whether that's different. Okay, so that's our scroll. Living Nach says the fruit of a righteous man is a tree of life. Wise is he who acquires souls. So that's going with version A. Alter says the fruit of the righteous is a tree of life, and the wise man draws in people. Okay, that's very loose. Okay, so he's taking souls as people, right? That is a usage that Tanakh has, for soul, but okay. And then he says, this is a little bit more of a editorial than linguistic usage. He says the fruit of the righteous person is a tree of life. It is a little problematic that fruit becomes a tree, but perhaps the poet was drawn into a certain slackness because fruit in biblical usage is so often a lexicalized metaphor for consequences, what one produces through his acts. So I just wanted to read that because in English we also say like the fruit of your actions, or we say that, right? Like the fruit of your deeds, whatever. So it's used in the same way in biblical Hebrew. It means consequences. Okay, so what are the questions here?
What does eitz chaim mean?
Okay, what does eitz chaim mean? Okay, and this is an interesting thing, right? Because the most simple translation of eitz chaim is a living tree, right? Okay. Or it could be a tree that gives life, okay, or something else, right? So but yeah. And obviously when you say eitz chaim, you think of I assume people are thinking of like the eitz hachaim in Gan Eden. Okay. Avi, this is going to stray a little over into what you and I are doing in some of the Mefarshim, at least depending on which direction we go. But yeah, so I think that's like obviously a deliberate, that's an intended association. But yeah,
Well, I was more asking if it was literal or a metaphor.
Yeah, right. This is going to be an interesting question here because certainly Eitz Chaim, I mean, presumably Pri and Eitz Chaim are metaphors, right? So the first half of the pasuk, I think it's going to be very hard to take literally, unless you say Pri is consequences, but then you're going to have to take Eitz Chaim as a metaphor somehow. Lokeach nefashos, that depends on what you say that means, whether you take that as a metaphor or not. Okay. What else? Questions? Yeah, Avi?
Pre tzadik is a little ambiguous. Like it doesn't say like the fruit of a tzadik's actions or the fruit of tzaddik's work.
What does pre tzadik mean? Oopsies, hold on just 1 second here. What does pre tzadik mean? Why not like fruit of the tzaddik's actions, right? Like what fruit does he produce? What fruit does he himself produce? Okay. What else? I'm going to move the targum.
What are the two halves of this pasuk? Like it doesn't seem like they're opposites in any way.
Okay. So what is the relationship between the two halves? They don't seem like opposites. Okay. And then just in terms of Mishlei methodology here, we don't always assume this, but we default to the assumption that a pasuk with two halves is usually saying opposites. But here it seems like, and usually it's opposites, like one chacham, one fool, or the tzadik and the rasha. Here it sounds like it is two good things, right? Tzadik and chacham. So they don't seem like opposites, but it's possible that they're opposites. It's possible that you can say there's one framework in which the tzadik or chacham is inferior to the other one, and then they're being compared.
Yeah, I was kind of gonna, I guess I'll build off of that question, because you maybe could say that a tzadik and a chacham can somehow be, the pasuk is contrasting a tzadik and a chacham, possibly.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let's use that as an opportunity to ask definition questions, which we always have to ask here. Yeah, what are the definitions of tzadik and chacham in this context? And by the way, I just want to point out, because this is a different crowd than our morning Mishlei Shiur. So we actually had a good example of this, by the way. And actually, I'm going to show it because, we had, what's the easiest way to show this? Mishlei 23. Actually, I don't even know. Okay, I'll show the pasuk. Just 1 second here. Yeah, this is important. So lest you accuse me of always asking the same questions over and over and over again, this will show you why it's important. Okay, because computer's being slow here. Mishlei 23:9, I think it was. Yeah. So Mishlei 23:9 says, "Ba'ozne ksil al tadaber ki avuz l'secha milacha." Into the ears of a fool do not speak, because he will mock or disparage the intelligence of your words. So we asked the question, like we always do, what is the definition of ksil in this context? And we were prepared to assume that ksil was the same definition that we always see, which is someone who is addicted to pleasure, or someone who expects reality to conform to his wishes. Sadigon, though, in this one case, translated ksil as just someone who is not, who's like a shallow thinker. And it completely changed the meaning of the pasuk. So the reason why I'm bringing that up now is because in the keyword is in this context. It could, we have our definitions of chacham and tzadik that we've been like developing throughout the course of the last 2.5 years of this year, or whatever, 2 years and 2 months of this year. But like, for all we know, this could be a completely different usage of tzadik and chacham here. Okay, so just like be aware of that. So this question is not for naught. Okay. Next.
What does it mean to take or acquire souls?
Yes. What does it mean to, I'm going to actually do a combo question, okay? Because I think first you have to ask, what does nefashos mean in this context? Actually, we'll make this into two questions. And then what does it mean to lokeach nefashos? Okay, and as Ariel mentioned, is this killing people, like taking a life? Yeah.
Just because you release me from my oath doesn't mean I'm gonna start saying crazy ideas.
Okay. Yeah. I shouldn't use the word releasing you from your oath. I should use the word giving you a reprieve from your oath. Yeah. Brief break. Yeah. Okay. What else?
Well, what does it mean to? Never mind. You literally just asked that. Oh, what does No, never mind.
What is this, tzadik? Oh, never mind.
You were released from your oath, and then suddenly, like, your mind just dissolves.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we asked all the questions.
I don't think so. I think there's more questions. I can't hear you. I still can't hear you. Something's garbly about the audio. If you absolutely can't say it, then you could type it, I guess. Okay, anyone else?
I think he typed it.
Oh, he did? Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. What about taking the? Okay, good. So what is it about lekichas nefashos that, I guess, let's say, makes you a chacham, or I guess I don't want. I'm trying to say a way to say is symptomatic of being a chacham, but without using disease analogies.
Or like lends you to be a chacham.
I can hear you this time, but I didn't hear you. Say it one more time. The audio is good. I just didn't hear you. Oh man, the audio is bad again. It's not just me, right? You guys can also hear that the audio is bad, I assume. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Don't know what it is. Or express reflects the fact that you are a chacham. Yeah. Tamar?
I feel like it'd be worth asking what's the subject of this pasuk.
Yes. Good. Okay. So what is the subject of this pasuk? And just elaborate on that question. Well, actually, I'll ask you to elaborate. Why do you say in this case?
I just think it's really ambiguous what scenario or context this is talking about.
Yeah. What is the context or scenario here? Okay, and then let me read the question that was typed in here by Moshe. By nature, what about taking? Oh, by nature makes you a chacham. You're elaborating on your question. Yeah. I don't want to use the word by nature. Just that's taking a stance. But if what you mean by nature is like essentially reflects chachma, then yeah, I would agree with the question. Not like intrinsically a chacham. Okay. We're closing in on all the questions. I feel like there's still a couple more.
Who's the audience?
Okay, who is the audience? That is one of the questions I was waiting for. Who is the audience of this pasuk?
What's the practical takeaway?
Yes, what's the practical takeaway? Okay, good. And what is the practical takeaway? Okay, I feel like those are all the questions that I had, at least. Anyone see any other questions? I mean, kind of here, I guess, like, I'm going to just add here, what is 8 and what is chayim? Yeah. Just because just breaking it up, because like, for example, like I could see a scenario in which you would say that the tree is metaphorical, but the chayim is literal, like it doesn't have to be like one solid metaphor.
I don't understand 8 and 9.
8 and 9? Is that what you just asked about? Yeah. So 8 is, so the way we approach Mishlei is that it is we approach it as a book of decision making. So most psukim are addressing a specific scenario and then giving you, the different decisions that different people make. So tomorrow's question was like, what is the scenario here? The way she expressed the question of what is the subject of this pasuk, that's the way Rabbi Moskowitz always used to express it, which is like certain pasukim you read, like let's just look at our last pasukim that we've done. Like let's say Botech ba'ashro hu yipol uk'ela tzadikim yifrachu. The subject of this one is trusting in your wealth, clearly. Okay, or yesh mefazer v'nosaf od v'chosek miyosher ach l'machsor. One who scatters will gather more. There's a person who scatters and gathers more, but one who withholds from uprightness will be only for lack. That has something to do with giving tzedakah. Here it's like, what is this even talking about? That's our question. And then 9, the question of 9 of who's the audience of this pasuk is that, certain psukim are for a general audience, like they can apply to lots of different people, and other psukim are for someone with a specific like problem or specific need, and like this person needs to hear this pasuk. So we usually like to just ask the question just to get a better idea of who the pasuk is talking to, and also who the pasuk is not talking to. So like, for example, the pasuk will not usually be talking to Russia or to a fool. Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, it's a strange image that the fruit of a tzadik is a tree of life. Like, what's the
yeah?
I don't know, like, what even to call it. Like the tension between the two, the relationship between the two. Like, is it a fruit or is it a tree? Like, which one is?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I don't know if you were on when I read Alter's comment, but Alter also was bothered by that. He said, furthermore, it seems like a wonky metaphor to say that the fruit is a tree, right? What's up with that? Yeah. Okay. All right. I think we are now ready. Okay. So at this point in this year, we take our thinking minute and we sit and we think. And then I will take, we'll give priority to people who either have like full explanations or like, mostly worked out ideas. Okay. And then we'll progress after that. So let's take a moment to think and interrupt if you have another question. Couldn't hear it.
Alter? What was like?
Oh, Alter. What did he say? He said he was just bothered by this this question that saying the fruit is a tree. Let me just see. Who is Alter? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh, he is a modern translator. And while we're here, I'll just say Chaim is a little problematic that fruit becomes tree, but perhaps the poet was drawn into a certain slackness because fruit in biblical usage is so often a lexicalized metaphor for consequences. But I think that's okay. I'll just weigh in on Alter right here. I think that's a little, it's true that fruit is used for consequences. I think that's a little bit of a lazy answer because when you see fruit paired with tree, like it probably means fruit, it probably doesn't mean consequences. Okay. All right, let's go back to thinking, and then we'll call on people. Okay, Isaiah, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to address the weirdest question first, the pre becoming an eighth time.
Good. Yeah.
So what is a pre-tzadik? A pre-tzadik, I'm saying is a teaching of a tzadik. So what does it mean that it has? Because I think that's something that they can do if they teach. Yeah. So what does it mean that it's an eighth time? Is that any teaching that tzadik teaches is not just a teaching on its own. It's rooted in a framework of like an entire time and like of decision making. And so any pre that they teach you is part of a bigger tree, and kind of it's like is the tree in a certain sense because it's totally part of it.
Okay, that's good. All right, I think that's a good resolution for the ambiguity. I have further thoughts on that. but I want to withhold it because I don't want to say a full idea yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good for the first half. All right. You have a second half also, or just the first half?
Yeah. Second half also.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, the lokeach and the pasuk chacham. So someone who's a chacham is someone who will buy the peirush that the tzadik is offering, buy or take them. So since the tree is an age time, it's like a derech time. It basically is a life. It's like a nefesh that they can take from the tzadik. So any teaching from the tzadik when they're taking it, it's like their kona life. So that's how I'm thinking.
Okay, that's good. So I can elaborate on that in a second. I guess anyone else have any thoughts on Isaiah's approach before we take other approaches?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just to restate what Isaiah was saying for the first half, he's saying that like the tzaddik gives you the fruit, but that's like indicative of like the bigger picture, which is a tree. Is that what he's saying?
No. Let me try saying what he said, and Isaiah, you weigh in. Is that when a tzaddik gives you a fruit, then it's not just a fruit, is that it is an entire system, an entire derech chacham, an entire tree, you know. And if you think about it, I mean, this is kind of what I was going to say also for this first part, was like, that is what a fruit is, right? I mean, fruit is the thing that perpetuates, that causes other trees to grow. Like, it contains all of the seeds that can yield another tree. So that's really what the tzaddik is trying to give you, you know. And that was, I mean,
I say it slightly
sure.
differently. Is that he's not giving, and this is pretty much the same thing, but like, he's not giving you an isolated teaching. He's just opening to you like a sort of like a window into an entire framework. So like, there's no sort of like, in terms of like logical underpinnings, like the fruit is entirely like connected to the tree. It's not, you know, it's not distinct from the other teachings. So like, you know, it's part of that same system.
That last part I did not understand.
Okay, fine. You could go with how you were saying.
Okay.
Wait.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Because the last part that Isaiah said is kind of like what I thought he was saying the first time. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here before. There's
one of you wants to try to develop that. I'm just saying I don't understand what you just said.
Can you, Rabbi Sheamus, can you say what you were saying again?
Yeah, and I'm conscious of the fact that maybe I was reading my own idea into what you were saying, but okay. So I'll give you a counter mashal. Okay, so if it said something like the tzaddik, if you use a mashal of like the tzaddik giving bread or something like that, right? So bread is something that's nourishing, but you just eat it and then it's gone. Okay, but the fact that it's saying a tzaddik gives a tree, and it gives a fruit, and the fruit is a tree. So that's something that is both like, you know, valuable in its own right, but also gives rise to an entire like entity that is even more productive, you know. So it's not just a static, isolated idea. It's something that like yields much more than what he's giving, and that's what the tzaddik gives. Again, I don't know if I'm reading what you're saying.
I feel like it's slightly different. It sounds to me like you're saying that like the teaching that the tzaddik give, it's not just like a teaching, like it has an effect. That teaching itself has like an effect on the person's life, and that's like the eighth time.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I got that is because you said derech chacham, and that's what I thought you meant by derech chacham.
Well, I think I was saying differently. I was saying that the fruit is like sort of, you can't unentangle it from the tree which it came from. Like it's like,
I see what you're saying now. Okay, in other words, so the imagery you're going with is someone like giving you fruit that's attached to a tree. So when he pulls the fruit down, it like bends down the entire branch, like he's giving you the entire tree.
So going back to my question, like, is according to what Isaiah is saying, is he saying that that's just the fruit is indicative of the system of the tree?
It's a part of the system of the tree and inseparable from it.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, you want? I think I'm sensing, by the way, that this is one of the shiurim that I'm going to have to take notes as we go. Okay, because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of like nuanced differences here. Okay, so Isaiah's idea is, I just want to take the first half first, and then we could build on that. So the ideas that the tzaddik gives over are like the fruit, which is attached to an entire tree, rather than something that is a standalone entity. Okay, and then what were you saying for the second half, Isaiah?
So when you take the fruit that the tzadik gives you, you're really accepting it like an entire life along with it.
Okay, good. All right. That's where the Chachamim comes in the way that I wanted to say it, I think. Right. When the tzaddik takes the fruit, he's accepting an entire life. Okay, that's like taking a soul along with it. Okay, and what does that mean in specific?
I guess I was thinking like let's say you learn a particular idea from a tzaddik.
Yeah.
You're not, if you're thinking about the idea and when you apply it to your life, you'll end up seeing that like, oh, there are other ideas that like are based from the same like conceptual underpinnings that this idea came from, and like it just will lead you to like a life of ideas.
Yeah,
and that is an existing like framework outside of you that the tzaddik just knows about and is giving to you.
Yeah. Okay. You want me to give you 240 examples? Every Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Okay. Nice. I don't know if there's actually 240, but what I mean by that is like the way that, I mean, it's probably true of Mishlei also, but in Pirkei Avos, it would always be like, Hu Haya Omer, like he would say such and such. And each idea that he said would be like emblematic of an entire way of like relating to life as a whole. Like that's, I feel like that's like the kind of ideas that is given over Pirkei Avos, because it's stated as like, this was like the essence of what this guy was all about, Yeah. The only little bone I have to pick with this approach is it's a little weird that it's talking so in the, okay, this is a very minor complaint, okay, but it's talking about the tzaddik gives a pri, which is the entire thing, and the chacham takes nefashos, he's taking lives, something about the singular plural doesn't quite please me, but I do like how you're answering the question that Ayala or Tamara asked, I forgot who asked it, about what the relationship is between the two halves of the pasuk. You're saying that this is describing an interaction between the chacham and a tzaddik. And what I also like about it is that Mishlei, one of Mishlei's definitions of a chacham, which I will show you in the beginning of Mishlei, is Rashi says, and this is not just Rashi, but I just know where to find Rashi. He says a chacham is chacham. The pasuk says Yosef Yishma chacham Yosef lekach. The chacham will hear, and he will gain learning. Oh, hold on. Maybe I don't know where this is. Chacham ze bal shmua. A chacham is someone who just has received knowledge, and then a navon is someone who could think on his own. So this is talking about chacham in the capacity of like someone who receives knowledge from the tzaddik.
Can I try to answer that question that you had on Isaiah's approach?
Sure.
So it's like you said before, that the fruit but contains within it the potential for more trees and more fruit.
Yeah.
So in that sense, even if you were just to get one fruit from the tzaddik, you have the potential then to have many. In which, if we're likening these fruits to lives, then you can have many lives just from the one fruit.
Okay, that works out. That definitely does work out.
I also wanted to add maybe a havamina to Isaiah's approach. That because you could have just said when the tzaddik gives you fruit, like the wise person, like you could kind of have this idea, but insofar as why you need like the fruit and the tree is because I think it's very easy to not see this point that Isaiah is talking about, which is when he gives you the fruit, he's really backing it up with like the entire tree. You could just like be at a shear, when you see a chacham or a tzaddik or whatever, giving shear, and he says like one thing, and you're like, I don't know about that thing. Like, I don't know if I agree with it. Meanwhile, like he's being backed up by this like entire network of like ideas and like a lifestyle that he lives by, where like it makes sense if you're in that lifestyle. So he has to tell you that like it's not just the fruit that he's giving you. It's like it really does come along with the entire process.
That reminds me. I forgot if I quoted this in this year, but I knew I quoted this earlier in this year. The Bruce Lee story about the chopsticks. I know that sounds really Asian stereotyping, but I can do that though. So he says Three swordsmen sat down at a table in a crowded Japanese inn and began to make loud comments about their neighbor, hoping to goad him into a duel. The master seemed to take no notice of them, but when their remarks became ruder and more pointed, he raised his chopsticks and in quick snips effortlessly caught 4 flies on the wing. As he slowly laid down the chopsticks, the 3 swordsmen hurriedly left the room. This story illustrates a great difference between Oriental and Western thinking. The average Westerner would be intrigued by someone's ability to catch flies with chopsticks and would probably say that has nothing to do with how good he is in combat. But the Oriental would realize that a man who has attained such complete mastery of an art reveals his presence of mind in every action. The state of wholeness and imperturbability demonstrated by the master indicated his mastery of self. So in other words, the superficial thinker will, or not thinker, the superficial student, I guess, will he'll lose the tree for the fruit, as the saying goes. Not really, but he'll take the thing in isolation and not realize that there's an entire derech chacham associated with it, you know. Whereas a chacham, presumably like the highest level of chacham in the sense of someone who can receive knowledge, will realize that there is an entire tree, you know, attached to this fruit that the tzadik is giving him. This reminds me of another story. Just give me 1 second. No, it's too far-fetched. Okay. Yeah. All right. Ariel, I interrupted you earlier. Did you want to add something to Isaiah's thing, or you just wanted to clarify?
I was gonna add to it, but then I realized that you two were saying something differently.
Okay.
So technically, I was going to add to what you were saying.
Okay, fine. All right. So I'll come back and say what I was going to say later on. But yeah, Chaim, you're up.
Yeah. Okay. So my idea is not nearly as fleshed out as Isaiah's.
Okay.
And like I'm hoping to make a little move that will hopefully be valid, but I don't know that it is.
Okay. That's
so
fun.
I know so the problem is that chacham's in the pasuk, but in a different context.
Okay.
But I wanted to say, you know, Ezu chacham haroes and olad, and I was gonna try to like work that into the first part of the pasuk about the tzadik.
Yeah.
Which is that like a tzadik is somebody who's living in line with like reality. He like understands, you know, cause and effect and things like that. And he's able to like extrapolate knowledge, and he's able to like, you know, has like foresight. And in that sense, like a tzaddik who only has a fruit in the moment, like it's almost like it's like a guarantee he's going to have a tree in the future. Like it's like when you see somebody with I'm trying to find like a good example, but like let's say like a just say investing is like so someone is like a really good investor, right? Like really knows how to read the market, and like it doesn't like randomly crash. I mean, I know it does, but like let's pretend it doesn't, right? And like you give him $100, you know that in 5 years from now he's gonna have, you know, thousands of dollars. Like that's just like, let's pretend like that's how well it works.
Yeah.
Like in that sense, like somebody who like knows their craft, you know, you can in the moment they only have a little thing, but in like the longer you can say like he really has like this amount. And I was thinking about that like just in general with the tzadik. Like I don't think it necessarily needs to be like a specific thing. So that was like for the first half. And the second half I wasn't as clear on, but like the one thing that comes to mind is like Avraham.
Yeah.
That like, you know, he was a chacham, and that he acquired souls, you know, like it says like when he left, you know.
You mean in this pasuk over here?
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Esan Nefesh Asher Asu B'Haran, the souls that he acquired in Haran, which Onkelos translates as Vias Nafshasa Deshabidu Oraisa B'Haran, the souls that he subjugated to Torah in Haran. Yeah. Yeah.
So I was thinking of something along those lines. You know, that the wise person acquires souls. In that sense, like he brings them into the fold. I just don't know how any of this like connects, and how any of it like creates like a practical. I mean, unless you want to say that like, you know, don't shortchange the tzaddik and like get with the chacham, because you know he's a smart guy.
Okay, so I'll jot down what you have here, but I think we'll put it on the side burner, not the back burner, and let it continue cooking from the heat of the other dishes. Okay, so the tzaddik relates to a fruit, to his fruit, in a manner which you can be sure will eventuate in a full tree. Okay, the chacham the chacham who sees the consequences. Okay, that's what we got to figure out.
Well, no, see that's the problem, is that I used Haroas and Nolad in the first half.
Yeah. Well,
so like the second half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try to help you here, and I'm helping you not knowing that this is going to actually go anywhere. But let's just look at my diagram for my understanding of a chacham versus a tzadik. I know we probably did this earlier also. Mishleic spectrum. I think I put it here. Yeah. Okay. So this is my diagram, right? So on the x-axis, you have the short-term perspective and to the long-term perspective. And then on the y-axis, you have a linear view. This is not exactly a graph. So on the left y-axis, you have the linear view, and on the right axis, you have the systemic view. Okay. So and you have three personalities: the avil, the chacham, and the tzadik. So the way I understand it is the avil can only see things in a very short-term way, and when he's looking short-term, he's only looking literally linearly. A causes B. Okay. The chacham sees things linearly, but sees things longer term. Okay. So let's just simplify. The avil just sees A. Okay. He's only thinking about A. He's not even thinking about B. The chacham sees that A causes B. The tzadik sees that is thinking systemically. So he sees that A affects the entire system, which in turn will have an effect on B, C, and D, etc. Okay. And I'll give the example I always give because it was the first time I thought of the example. So like if you are in a school, a high school, let's say, because that's where I thought of the example, and there's a lost object on the ground. Okay. So the avil will just take it for themselves. Let's say someone like whatever, some expensive object, whatever, right? So the avil, I was going to use an example, but it was all girls school, and like I can't relate to examples of expensive things, Ugg boots or whatever, So the avil will just steal it, okay? And they're not even thinking about the consequences. They're not thinking, well, what if someone finds out about it? They're not thinking, what if they get in trouble? Whatever. The chacham will return it, okay? And the chacham is thinking about the consequences, not only the consequences of not returning it, but the long-term benefits of returning it, that, this person will be very thankful. They will be, they'll probably want to help me. Like people will view me as a good person. I will, and this will all be good for me in the long run, even though it's going to cost me something in the short run to like give up on free boots and to like, and to have the time of tracking down the owner. But what's the tzadik going to do? The tzadik will realize that I'm going to return it, even if I get nothing out of it. Okay, why? Because by doing this, I'm promoting an environment. I'm contributing to a system in which, remember, the tzaddik is the person who thinks about the system, as opposed to just the consequences. And the tzaddik is saying, by returning this item, I'm contributing to a system in which people care about each other's property, which even if this doesn't benefit me directly, it will benefit me in the future insofar as I'm part of the system and I'm improving the whole thing. So the chacham, because he's only thinking linearly, his view of the consequences and benefits is limited to what he can see coming back to himself. The tzaddik is thinking about how it affects the entire system, and that gives a much broader view. So I don't know if that's going to help you at all, but in this case, I'm trying to salvage the idea that like the chacham is ro'es hanolad, but it's a limited ro'es hanolad, whereas the tzaddik is thinking about the entire system, and that allows him to see consequences much further.
All right, I have a question. You said like,
oh yeah, sorry, yeah. It's like I'm underwater hearing someone talking above the pool. I don't know if you always have this problem with your mic, but since it's the first time you're in Shiur, I just can't understand you. So I don't know if is there a way to try it? Like, I don't know if you're in a crowded place. Can you try it without your like with the computer mic or something? I don't know. It might be the Wi-Fi or whatever, but yeah, sorry. I wish I could hear you. All right. Chaim, did that help? Or is it just something?
I don't know. I think
okay, that's fine. That's fine. Fair enough. Okay, so we'll leave it on the side burner. Ariel.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of want to like take up the question of like the relationship between the two half of the pasuk, like why. Yeah. I kind of want to say that like there's a difference. I think the second half of the pasuk is strictly talking about a chacham, and like the first half of the pasuk is just talking about tzadik. I mean they're not interacting with each other. Not no.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's just two different frameworks,
Yeah.
I'll start with the easy one first, and I'll start with the with the pre-tzadik Eitz Chaim, and I kind of like what you were saying, because like a tzadik, based off of the definition where he's doing the good, the good of the system, the good for the system, he's giving he's giving the fruit, and I want to translate the fruit as like teachings almost, like for instance, the classic example is like you if you give someone a fish, you'll feed them for a day, but if you,
I was wondering at what minute in the shiur someone was going to quote that. Yeah. Yeah.
It's 7:42 p.m.
Yeah.
The answer is always 42, by the way.
So basically, okay, so we got the first half down.
Yeah, no, it is. I don't mean to denigrate it's a good proverb, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fitting that we have that proverb in Mishlei.
Yeah.
So the second half of the pasuk, maybe you could say that that the chacham isn't thinking about that. The reality is just because he's not thinking about that, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not a chacham, right? Like a tzadik will probably do that. The tzadik would probably acquire souls also.
Yeah.
Just because of his very nature. So what's the difference between a chacham and a tzadik? But the tzadik acquires souls through different methods, which is good for the system, right?
Yeah.
But the chacham not necessarily so. He's just doing it for himself.
Okay. I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Okay, fine. He's doing it for himself so that he sees the good, that's beneficial for his world. Yeah. Thinking long term, and he's also thinking, in that sense, linearly, meaning for instance, great example, if you see great talent, yeah, you're gonna want to hire that guy and keep it in your tool belt because he does provide value for you, right? You're gonna want him, that's a smart thing to do, right?
Yeah. Okay, I have an idea, and I think it is building off of your idea, but I'm I don't know if it's going beyond that. I'm going to say it now just so we can see if it is two different ideas. I'm sorry, Michael, I'm cutting ahead in line, but I'll call on you afterwards. Okay, so what I was thinking is like this, okay, that the subject of the pasuk is teaching, okay, and there's two ways of teaching. There's the way that a chacham teaches and the way that a tzadik teaches, okay, and forget about Avraham for a second. I'll address Avraham in a second afterwards. The chacham, actually, let me start with the tzadik because that's in the first in the pasuk. So the tzadik's goal is to produce an independent thinker. Okay, so the tzadik himself is an Eitz Chaim, and that's not a stretch to say because that's the mashal that's used all over Tehillim, right? For example, the very first parak of Tehillim is that the tzaddik is v'haya ke'etz shasu al palgei mayim asher pirio yitain be'itov alehu lo yibol v'chor asher yaseh yatzliach. The tzaddik is like a tree planted alongside streams of water who gives fruit in his time, and his leaf doesn't wither, and everything he does will succeed. And this is in lots and lots of prakim. Another example that we are probably more familiar with is in Mizmor Sheyalem Shabbos. Tzadik katamar yifrach ke'erez balavon yizkeh. Right, so the tzaddik is like a date palm, will flower like a date palm and like a cedar in Lebanon. Shusulim b'veis Hashem, etc., etc. O yunuvim b'seva deshenim ra'ananim yu. He'll still be fruitful in old age, etc. So this is all used all over the place. Okay, so the tzaddik is a tree of life, but what he wants to do is he wants to produce fruit that will grow into another tree. Okay, so the tzaddik's goal is to produce independent thinkers and to nurture them to be able to think on their own. Okay, the chacham, what does the chacham want to do? He wants to acquire souls, which means he just wants to basically duplicate himself. Okay, he wants to just teach people the same ideas that he has, that he sees as true, and give them what he has. Now, that's not bad. It's just not the ideal. Okay, that the chacham is so concerned with his own. He's so locked. Again, I think it is like what Ariel's saying. It is a linear view. The chacham sees a certain amount of truth, and he basically wants to to win people over, right, to his views and get them to believe what he believes. But the tzaddik knows that that's not how human development works. And if you really want someone to succeed, you want to give them the tools to become an independent thinker and to carry it on their own. Okay. And I can give two examples of this. One is definite, I know it 100%, and the other is speculative. Okay, the definite example is me. Okay, when I first started teaching high school, and I was still like in a rabid yeshiva guy like mentality, then I was preaching the gospel. I just wanted to make sure that everyone accepted the Rambam's 13 Ikarim and gave rational answers to all these all the questions and and it's not that I shot down people who disagree with me, but I was really trying to mold students' minds into being little duplicates of myself. Then I matured over the years, and my emphasis shifted to helping students to acquire the tools that they need to be able to think on their own and to work through their own issues and decisions on their own, even if it ends up being different than mine, and that's trying to promote, to take the fruit and to promote it into an eights. Before we go into the speculative example, Arya, would you say this is a different idea or an extension of what you're saying?
I think it's extremely, I think it's the same idea. I just wanted to understand when you say, molding someone like yourself versus, giving them the tools necessary to grow. What's the difference between the two?
The difference is that what point do you consider yourself to have succeeded? Is success measured by this person has all of the ideas that I hold to be true as a teacher, or is success when they're able to think on their own and arrive at truth on their own?
Okay. Can I give an example? Can I give another example?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to take away from a speculative example, so whichever one you want to go first, or
no, you go first.
Okay, fine. So I think Keller Williams.
Hold on, wait.
Just give me a second.
Just a second. Boom.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, that's I was at the office today and I thought about getting one for you, but
okay. Anyway, thank you. Go on with your example. This is unpaid sponsorship. Gary Keller, The One Thing, the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. You can get your copy on Amazon like I did. Yeah.
It's actually the Lichters own that book, just FYI.
Oh, that's a good endorsement. Okay. Anyway, go on.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Okay. Fine. So Keller Williams, their whole franchise model is not to just give them, it's not just to give them the ability to mimic, Gary Keller's first franchise.
Yeah.
He always holds training sessions for every market and for every franchise so that they can, be equipped with the tools and, the knowledge to grow just as big as him. Like for his system, that's great growth. That's ultimately going to expand, the brand into, extreme heights versus, and I think, another question that, that's coming through this approach is that, what's the, so therefore what for the chacham, is this for the chacham, and what message are we conveying to the chacham,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
For the message. Okay.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Okay. So I think that the message for the chacham is we just have to shift his mindset by explaining that you could achieve so much more by changing your tactic. Because ultimately he's a chacham. He understands the value for himself, but you have to show him the bigger picture.
Exactly, yeah. And that's a huge developmental step for the chacham when he realizes that you're actually harming your own agenda by forcing your ideas on other people. It's more in line with your agenda is truth. Allegedly, you want people to attain truth, and it's really better for your agenda if you give them the tools to independently pursue truth, as opposed to forcing your idea of the truth onto them.
And the relationship between you and the fruit giver will be so much stronger. And
that's also true. Yeah.
The ties,
So let me give you my speculative example, and I actually am going to I'll preface it with a question. So the question is that pasuk that I just quoted by Abraham. It uses the phrase "the nefesh that he made in Haran," and I'm kind of I kind of need Michael. I'm glad Michael Zoldan is here because I feel like I don't know better than everyone, but I know Michael Zoldan knows the timeline of Avram Avinu pretty well. So I'm hoping that this works out with the timeline, but we'll see. So if you go into Hilchos Avodah Zarah, when the Rambam is describing the history of Avram Avinu, Perek Aleph, he talks about 2 stages that Avram had in students, in having students here. Okay, the first stage, and this is after Avram discovered the existence of God. And it says that he knew Veda Shekol Ha'am Toim. He knew that all the people in Ur Kasdim were in error. Is that they were, the thing that caused them to make the mistake is that they were worshiping the stars and the images until the truth was lost from their minds. Uben Arba'im Shana Hikir Avram Esboro. Avram was 40 years old when he reached this conclusion. Okay, Kivin Shehikir Veda. Once he recognized God and knew. He began to arrange disputations or debates with the members of Ur Kasdim and to set up court with them. Okay, meaning to set up like to debate these ideas. Volomar, and to say, this is not the true path that you're following. He broke the idols. And he taught people, he began teaching people that it's only proper to serve the God of the universe. And he's the one who's proper to bow down to and to offer korbanos to and to offer libations to. So that all the other people will recognize, and it's proper to destroy all the idols, so that people don't err after them. Just like those who don't think that there's any God other than these. Okay, so what happened? So it sounds great, right? He's going out and teaching the true ideas of Hashem. But what happened? Kivin Shagavar Aleihim Barayosav. Once he won over them with his proofs, Bikesh HaMelech Lahargo, the king wanted to kill him, right? And this is where, the Chazal say that he was thrown into a fiery furnace. The Rambam doesn't seem to take that literally, but he does say that Avram's life was in danger. Naaseh lo nes, a miracle was done for him. V'yatza l'charan. Oh, the chronology doesn't work out. Okay, I still think it's a good example. And he went to Haran. V'hischel lamod v'likros b'kol gadol l'chol ha'am. And he began to stand up and to call out in a loud voice to all the people, and to tell them that to teach them there's only one God in the world. And he's the one who's proper to serve. He would go and gather the people. He would go from city to city and province to province or kingdom to kingdom until he reached Canaan, and that's when he called in the name of Hashem, God of the universe. Now here's the last part. The when the people would gather to him, and they would ask him about his words, he would teach each one according to his mind until he returned them to the true path. Until he gathered thousands and thousands of people, and that is the people of the house of Abraham. He planted this foundation in their heart, etc., etc. So what do you see from here? So there were two chapters in Abraham's journey as a teacher. In the first journey, he was very confrontational, and he basically forcibly imposed his ideas on people through disproving their ideas and through breaking their idols and through setting up these debates, right? And what happened? He won and he lost. Right, he won the arguments, but then the king wanted to kill him and it tried to extinguish it. The second time around, he would answer their questions in a way that was catering to their developmental level, and that's the one that succeeded. So what I want to say is that was the 2 stages here. I know it doesn't line up with the pasukim here because the pasukim say that he made souls in Haran. Which could be, it's not a contradiction. It could be that he got some souls in Haran and then went with him and then succeeded more afterwards. But the point is that Abraham was acting like a chacham first, just making souls of imposing his ideas on them by force, not by force, but not nurturing their minds. But then in the second time around, he was nurturing their minds and they came to his thinking. And the culmination of that is in the way he educated his son, Yitzchak, because that's the pshat of why does it say, this is the pshat in the Ozer Tefilah Siddur of the Eitz Chaim, the Eitz Yosef, who says, what does it, why does it say Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov? Why doesn't it just say Elokei Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov? Because Avraham raised Yitzchak as an independent thinker. So Yitzchak was raised, exposed to the idea of Yichud Hashem, but Yitzchak arrived at it on his own, not just accepting it because his father had it. And same thing with Yaakov. So that's what I want to say. My idea is. Okay, I'll remember my idea, so I don't have to type it now. But I just want to make a placeholder. Okay.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So in terms of the phrase lokeach nefashos, I would have guessed that rather than meaning, let's say, like, modeling someone after your own ideas, it would mean something more like getting followers.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking when I was doing the Avram example. But what does it mean to get a follower, though?
Yeah, I guess I was thinking about it maybe more in like the social sphere. I mean, maybe this is not like appropriate motivation for a chacham. Like, I don't know, maybe this is too like low level or something. But yeah, someone teaching because they like having people like look up to them and respect them. Like, if you just don't impose your ideas and just give people the method to figure things out on their own, you don't get the same kind of followers.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's just what the phrase sounds like to me. So I guess it's not exactly.
I hear that. I think that's why I went in my direction, because it didn't sound like something that a chacham would really. It sounds a little bit beneath a chacham, or at least not natural to the definition of a chacham. So I was thinking, what stems from the definition of a chacham? Well, a chacham is someone who has received ideas. So what's his version of teaching going to look like? Transmitting ideas. But a tzadik is someone who has developed and who recognizes the system and individual needs. So what's his teaching going to look like? It's going to look like planting seeds, giving fruit, which plant seeds, which grow into other trees. Yeah. All right. That's my shot. Okay. Michael, you're up.
I have a question on this.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Michael, one second. Yeah. I'll go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So similar to Tamar's question, but the opposite, the way that you responded makes it seem like, at least based off of my experiences, it kind of sounds like it's like the chacham has these ideas which he's passionate about, and he because his good experiences with them, he wants to give other people those good experiences.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that kind of sounds like not really chacham motivation, I feel like.
Well, the chacham's motivation is going to be because okay, my guess from the pasuk that we did in chapter let's see. That is in the Rambam. I'm not going to find Mishlei in the Rambam all nice and laid out. In the chapter we're in, from psukim 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 and 29. I don't remember if all of our ideas were about that, but it was talking about teaching, and a lot of the psukim emphasized, the one that emphasized it the most was Yesh Mefazer v'Nosaf Od, one who scatters knowledge will there's one who scatters knowledge and gains more, or also Nefesh Bracha Tedushan. Those psukim were about when you give knowledge, then you gain in your knowledge, and you learn more from teaching people. So my guess is the chacham's motive is going to be that he's going to gain in his chachma, but he thinks that the way it's, the tzadik and the chacham both want to benefit people, knowing that teaching is going to benefit themselves. But the difference is that the chacham thinks his idea of what teaching consists of is limited to giving over the ideas, as opposed to giving over the derech from which a person can arrive at their own ideas, even if they're different than his. I don't know.
Able just to say one more time what the difference in motive, what the difference exactly here would be between the tzaddik and the chacham.
Yeah, the difference is in not so much in their motive, but in what their model of teaching is. The chacham is someone who has received ideas, and his teaching is giving over ideas and getting people to believe those ideas. The tzaddik is someone who has developed into an independent thinker from his exposure to the world of ideas, and he wants to give over ideas in order to facilitate that development into a independent thinker. He wants the fruit that he gives to become eaten, nourished, and developed into another tree.
So it's not an expression of their different motivations, but it's differences in the way they think.
Yeah, differences in the way they think and the way they teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask a question? Another additional question on this shot?
Sure.
Why would the chacham not act like the? I mean, what's stopping the chacham from doing what the tzaddik is doing?
Oops, hold on just a second. I just accidentally shared the screen. Hold on, what happened? What stops the chacham? What did I do? Oh, I clicked something on Word. Okay. What stops the chacham from doing what the tzaddik is doing? That's a good question. I mean, I think what stops him is that he's not a tzaddik. I know that doesn't sound like it answers the question, but in other words, the way I'm working with our usual definitions of chacham and tzaddik, that the chacham is just roes hanolad and the tzaddik is really thinking in a system-based way. So I think the chacham just is not thinking in that way, and therefore he doesn't really see. That's a good question, actually. I don't know. What I'm struggling with is it because he's lacking in the way he relates to other people and their needs and doesn't see it in terms of the system, or is it because of the way he relates to ideas themselves?
Right. I mean, is it possible that he's just not aware? Meaning, like, is it possible that the chacham is just not aware of a system like that? It is
possible, yeah. I mean, again, all I can do is draw on my own experience, and I think with my own experience in being exposed to truth, like let's say when I had Rabbi Moskowitz, the focus was on, Rabbi Moskowitz is giving over cool ideas, and there was a dim awareness that he had a different derech, but I don't think I really realized early on that his goal as a teacher was to give over a derech of independent thinking, and I think I just wasn't capable of seeing it, and so I'm toying with this idea that maybe the chacham just can't see things in systemic ways, and that's limiting the way he relates to the ideas that the tzaddik is giving him. I'm not sure.
Yeah, like this morning, like you had a great chiddush, and I forgot what it was. Like it was something to do on like talking about ideas, even though it doesn't fit in with the pasuk. I'm like, I never really thought about that, but then when you said it, like, oh, it makes sense. I'm going to consciously do it. So like, I guess, is that similar to like? Yeah,
I think that's similar to that. Right. There's always like two levels of teaching going on with the tzaddik. There's the particular idea, and then there's, like Isaiah was saying, and then there's like the whole thing that the idea comes from. And the tzaddik, when teaching ideas, is usually going to be just giving over the fruit, but when he's giving over I guess I'm lapsing into Isaiah's idea, it's impossible for the tzaddik to really give over these ideas without it being connected to the entire like derech chacham or way of thinking that they stem from. It's just the recipient doesn't always see it though, That's really exactly what Isaiah's idea was.
All right.
Okay, questions on this discussion before we get to Michael? Sorry, Michael, I'm making you wait so long, but yeah.
Oh yeah, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Isaiah.
So like what would it look like, the difference between how the tzaddik would act in this situation versus how the chacham would act?
So there are, I can give you different examples. Okay, so I'm just giving you, there are many examples. Okay, but one time I heard Rav Pesach say that that he will. I'll give you several examples. Okay, one thing I heard Rav Pesach say, sometimes he will give a svara over in shiur that is not as developed, but because he knows that working on that svara in shiur and having students see what the development looks like will get them better training in the thinking, so like that's one example. Another example is sometimes you will realize that I can convince a certain student of a certain idea, but it's going to stunt their growth because it's going to awaken emotional resistances. It's going to limit what they're thinking. It's going to make them take this idea and just plug it into everything. That's why like I did not want to, this is also in the morning shiur, I didn't want to just like read my my Mishleic glossary definitions from 2017, because I thought it would like, it would rob us of the ability to like develop on our own. Another difference is, look, I mean, I think I've said this before. When I first started giving this Monday Night Shiur in 2020, there was someone who used to come to the shiur, and then she stopped coming to the shiur. And I asked, actually, I didn't ask. It was in one of my surveys. She said she wants a shiur that is more like, I don't know what word she used, but where like the teacher is giving over more ideas, as opposed to like a group participation, group work shiur, and I that's totally a fine desire, and there's a time and a place for that. but that's not my goal as a teacher. My goal as a teacher is to help students develop their own ways of thinking. And this year we're getting far fewer like of my ideas, but like hopefully we're developing more in terms of our own skills and stuff like that. So like decision about what to focus on, so like there's many differences. Those are just like a handful that came to mind. But the key difference is it's going to be the chacham is only focused on one thing, which is how can I get over the ideas that I know as much as possible, like into the student's head. The tzadik is going to be concerned with what is best for the student's development, regardless of whether that lines up with my own current state as a thinker.
Got it.
Yeah. And, it's really amazing. It's really inspiring watching people like, Rabbi Zucker is one of the teachers from yeshiva who I look up to, the most as an educator. And, he taught high school for a very long time. Now he's a principal of an elementary school. And I see like, his daughter Tamima is always posting stuff on Facebook and stuff about what he's doing. I'm watching this person who's like one of the great Talmidei Chachamim of our generation, teaching, leading the chinuch of elementary school kids, and like, it's inspiring to see someone who is so much of a tzadik that like, if he was just a chacham, he'd be like, well, who can I give over my ideas the most to? But no, he's concerned with helping people develop, even if that means like people who are like Tinokol Shabes Rabban, yeah. Okay, I have a question on the chat, which I'll respond to now from Moshe. How can we say the pasuk is necessarily shedding the tzadik in a more positive light? Can't it simply be reflecting about two different teaching methods and getting us to reflect on the pros and the cons? So that's a good question. So the answer to my answer to the question about why I'm assuming that is the way we've learned Mishlei has favored the tzaddik as being on a higher level than the chacham. So I'm already entering into this pasuk with the assumption that that's the case here. Okay, that's one indication. But someone is going to disagree with that. Someone we love, by the way, Rabbeinu Yonah, shocker, is going to say that this is talking about, I think the Rabbeinu Yonah is going to say that the tzaddik is on a lower level than the chacham. Okay, at least in this context, all right? The other reason, though, is if you just look at the metaphors being used, a fruit that becomes a tree seems to be a superior result than a soul that was taken, in my opinion. In other words, like what is going to be better? So a soul being taken is the soul was here and now he's here. I didn't have him and now I've acquired him. It's a very, very limited thing. Whereas a pre that becomes a tree that then goes on to give more fruit, that then goes on to yield more trees. To me, that just seems like a better result. So I think that even if we didn't have any preconceived notions here, preconceived notions, then I think that the pasuk is advertising the tzaddik as being a better result than the chacham. And by superior, I mean that it is okay. In my view, and maybe I'm just prejudiced by God, but in Bekius, whenever you look at whenever Hashem uses the word good, the word tov, every time you see the word tov in Bekius, not every time you see the word tov by living creatures, it says, Ve'etz ose pri asher zarabo liminehu v'yarlakim kitov. That a tree that makes fruit that gives seed on the ground according to its species, and God saw that it was good. And every winged bird according to its species, he saw that it was good. And every creepy crawly thing according to its species, he saw that it was good. So perpetuation of the species is a superior good than perpetuation of the individual. And Lokech Nefashos to me does not point to multi-generational thing. It just points to this one person I now have on my team. Whereas a fruit that gives rise to a tree has the idea of like many, many generations of things. And so to me, that's what makes it superior. Perpetuity. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on this idea? We have a very patient man here. Okay, Michael, unless he's dead on the other side of the screen. Yeah, Michael?
No, I've been listening. I don't know if you can hear me so well. I'm on the bus. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you better than I could hear Moshe, but you might need to repeat some things.
Go ahead. I'm reading the pasuk very differently than you.
I've succeeded.
Yeah. I might agree with Rabbeinu Yonah. I find it odd that the pasuk starts with 4 straight nouns pre, tzadik, eitz, chayim. And then that like 3 of those are tangible physical things. And then the 4th is living, and 3 of them are living, and one of them, well, I guess all of them are living, and this one's just a definition or a concept. What strikes me is that it's circular. That if the fruit of a righteous individual is the tree of wisdom, then that means that the righteous individual came from the tree of wisdom, just like all fruit comes from the tree. Right. So meaning it's saying that it's a cycle. The righteous individual is a byproduct of life. Meaning righteousness simply means a thing living the way it should. When a cow lives like a cow, we know that that's the right cow, as opposed to the wrong cow, the cow that doesn't live like the cow. And the human is the same way. That's like the commentary on righteousness. But then it's interesting. So that's like the first half, and it's really like a beautiful sort of, it circles Chaim. It puts Chaim in the middle to say that it's all really a concept of life. The righteous individual is functioning in a lively system, organic, giving off fruit, creating more of the thing that produced him, the Chaim, life, which is a concept, and it's at the center of the verse. Then it says, this is almost like a joke, the second bit of the verse. It's like some advice. And by the way, right, if it happens to be that the fruit of the righteous is the tree of the wise, the tree of life, excuse me, well, then it's just smart to acquire living things, meaning living things that produce for themselves more things for you. Be a shepherd, own a tree, own living things. Meaning it's not saying that it's not a fight between the tzadik and the chacham. The tzadik is broader and would apply to any creature. We happen to be creatures that have chacham. And the final bit of the verse is advice. It's saying, like, go be like Abraham. Don't just be like a righteous person that, you, as a byproduct of your natural existence, you're giving off fruit, and that's a blessing to anyone that gains it because they grow the tree of life. Be smart about it. Acquire nefashos, living things that are organic. Own, produce, land that produces fields, flocks, wise individuals on your payroll as employees. That's the verse. The main focus is the Chaim. And you're right, the chacham is like a lower level, but it's like an afterthought that, like, you should do, knowing that pre-tzadik, it's Chaim.
Okay, so before I try to summarize what you're saying, are you translating the pasuk differently?
Yes, I'm kind of abandoning translations because I don't think the English helps. I think all of the connector words of English kind of get in the way of the Hebrew, which I think should be read more.
So then do me a favor though, and pretend that we don't speak Hebrew and just spew, even if it doesn't syntactically make sense. Like just give Okay.
I will say it as a caveman would.
Okay.
Fruit, righteous man. Tree of life, and take living creatures, take organisms, wise one.
Okay, that's what I wanted. Okay, fruit, righteous man, tree of life, and take organisms, wise one. Okay, so now let me just try to say what idea you're saying. So you're saying an idea of righteousness that is not Mishleic, but like a thing just living in line with its natural like with its nature, like that if something is living, then it will
Chaim, true Chaim, meaning tzidkus is nothing more than Chaim left to live perfectly, right? If you were a nefashos that lived in line with nefesh and Chaim, you would be a tzadik. Every single thing would be a tzadik.
Yeah. Righteousness in this context is just living in line with your nature / design. Okay. All right. And what's the fruit idea?
The fruit to me is actually sort of double. It's like one, it wants to get to Eitz HaChaim, which is a riff off of like all of Tanakh to mean Torah. And so you want to get pre in there. And then the pre is also in contrast to the lokeach. The chacham takes, whereas pre is not exactly, that's the beautiful thing. You would say he gives fruit that is like it's Chaim, but instead he like is fruit, and fruit is an offshoot of him because he doesn't give it artificially. It's a natural byproduct like fruit. The tree is indifferent to the fruit that it produces. So too the tzadik is indifferent to the fact that simply the results of his tzidkus is more Eitz HaChaim.
Okay, remarkably, I only just lost you now. I think I was kind of following. I think I was like sailing along on the
okay.
Yeah.
To answer it simply, pre-metaphorically balances lokeach.
Okay. So let me just attack this from a different angle. So what's the practical idea here? I mean, I know take organisms, but like.
Okay, I'd say the practical. I'd actually say this is a beautiful verse that people should just like repeat, almost like a Hasidic Rebbe, because they should like understand this idea. No, I'm serious, because it's saying that it's an encapsulation of the idea of tzidkus, that it stems from being and from life, and that it's a beautiful cycle of just living rightly produces more life that can live rightly. You know, it's that full circle. But like being Jewish, that's why I feel like the second bit is like a bit. You could end the verse at just the Eitz HaChaim. When you add the second bit, it becomes instruction, and it's sort of a joke that like, well, we're wise creatures, so we should be even better than just this. We shouldn't just be tzadikim. We should also like acquire tzadikim. Like, wouldn't it be better to have an army of tzadikim? Shouldn't like we have children that are tzadikim? Shouldn't we engage in tzidkus and own nefashos in all of our dealings and like engage in that like, philosophy completely? That's where the chacham comes in. He looks at it like an enterprising guy. It's not.
Okay, I think either your Wi-Fi is going good or God's trying to stop you from saying the idea. But no,
could be both. It could be both.
I was thinking the same joke, by the way.
No, so is this just a like mad advertisement for the naturalistic definition of righteousness? Like, what is the mostly? Okay. Oh yeah. Okay. That's nice, but I want to know like what is a person supposed to do? Like, what is the
that's the second part.
Okay.
Acquire living things, acquire organisms. That's the main thing. Meaning you want the life cycle. That's the real instruction of the verse. Life cycle is beautiful, perfect, and amazing. Acquire it as much as you can.
What does that mean? Costco has really good deals on buying lots of plants. Like, what does that? Good. What does that have to do with Mishlei?
So acquire those plants.
That's a very nice idea for Tehillim. Maybe. What does that have to do with Mishlei? How's that going to make me ladas chacham musar? Like, lahavim mirbina, and to make.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think that acquiring those plants are like the greatest nefashos, the greatest like cycle of life? If you don't have the Eitz HaChaim in there, you bought eitz but not Chaim.
I think that this is, I don't know what to make of this.
Meaning, I'm trying to say that it's focusing you to focus on the essence of life, which in Jewish philosophy is the Torah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's Chaim. It's focusing on Chaim, and it's saying acquire the thing that produces Chaim in the life cycle the most, which would be a living creature.
Yeah, but for human beings, that's not owning plants and organisms. That's chachma.
Correct. No, that's what I'm saying. It's saying mostly hang out with the tzadik, be the tzadik, and also as a chacham, like if you approach things as a chacham, acquire organisms.
What does that have to do with anything, though? What does that have to do with anything? I understand appreciating the organisms and saying barchi nafshi and saying brachos on food and like keeping sefer zraim. I understand going and acquiring organisms. Like,
yes,
you know who tried that? Shlomo tried that, and when he turned around and saw everything, he saw that everything was hevel.
Incorrect.
What does that get you? What does that get you? Just acquiring organisms? That doesn't make any sense.
That's incorrect. The people that acquired organisms, to be clear, the epitome were Hevel, Moshe, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, David. I might be missing some, but those are the main list. You can maybe say Shais. Shepherds. Judaism is very pro-shepherd.
Yeah, I've noticed. What does that have to do with
acquiring organisms?
Right.
Yes, and also trees, also orchards. Ashel, Abraham.
Okay.
Meaning it's folk wisdom that you should own an organism that controls a life cycle.
So what does one have to do with the other? What does the first half have to do with the second half then?
The first half is the essence of our philosophy. The second half is sort of like a jokey bit of piece of advice that like is true. You should acquire organisms. Chacham, go do it.
Okay. All right. Too deep for me. Okay, Chaim, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I had like one bit that would, I think, help Michael's point, at least his first point. Which is just that like we're talking about like Hilchos Tzedakah, and that like that has to do with helping to sustain something in its proper way.
Yeah.
Like facilitating.
You want me to quote the definition for you?
Sure. Okay,
yeah. So Chaim is paraphrasing the Rambam's definition of tzedakah in the More Nevuchim, 354 or 353. I always forget. 353. Tzedakah is lahavi kol bal zuchus es hamagia lo. So the legalistic definition is to bring anything that has a claim, that which it has a claim to. V'litein l'chol matzui min hanimtzayim kafi haroy lo, and to give each existing thing that which is befitting for its existence. So bringing a thing in line with that which is befitting for its existence. Yeah. Go ahead, Chaim.
That was it. I mean, I feel like at some point.
No, that is the definition of righteousness that Michael started off with before he went off the rails. Yeah. Yeah, Michael, are you raising your hand for another go? You want to have another go?
No.
No?
Okay, can we explain?
No, I had not lowered it.
His first part of his idea. Can you summarize that again? That's kind of like what I was trying to.
I mean, I'm hearing two completely different ideas in the first part of his idea. What he started off by saying is that it's giving you a definition of what righteousness is, which is just something living in line with its natural design. Okay, but then he said that it's a mashal for the Torah and the whole essence of our life, which to me, the way he was talking about the two ideas seem to be different. Unless you're going to say
a mashal.
What?
I'm not saying a mashal. I'm saying it's an encapsulation of our general approach about tzidkas.
Right, which is very nice, but then that doesn't really I don't see how that translates in any sane way to go out and get organisms. So that's where I am.
I think that's just a smart thing to do in an understanding of like tzidkas in the life cycle.
Okay, I don't.
Meaning I see that as being like the instruction component of this verse. I don't see this verse as being like two different paths. It's more like the first bit is some imagery, which is true. And then the second bit is instruction based upon that imagery. And it's maybe a little bit like not as good as the tzadik, not as beautiful and pure and simple and true, but it's still good advice. You should acquire organisms.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to say that, there are different drachim of learning Mishlei. And this one this is not a thing that I think Mishlei would talk about, and it's not a way I think Mishlei would talk. So that's why I think I have such resistance to this idea. And I don't see the value in the second half, especially when you characterize it as just like a snarky, jokey or whatever. Yeah, Tamar.
Can I ask me about Isaiah's idea from the beginning of Shiur?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe I just missed it. I just wasn't sure how the second half was being read in that context. And I was interested in if we could review that idea.
Yeah, so let me try saying it, and then Isaiah, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the fruit of a tzadik is not just a piece of food; it is an entire tree. It's attached to an entire tree. It stems from an entire tree. Okay, and because that's the way that the tzaddik thinks about things, and that's the way the tzaddik knows things, and that's also the way the tzaddik teaches things. Like, and again, another good example of this is anyone who's like learned Rambam the way the Rambam should be learned. You can't just quote a halacha in the Rambam. Whenever you quote a halacha in the Rambam, it's part of the entire system of Taryag, and he presents it in a way where you see how this halacha fits into the parak, how it fits into all the halachos, how it fits into the entire sefer, and how it fits into the entire system of Torah and perfection. It's like it's not just like a random smattering of halachos. Lokeach nefashos chacham is that therefore when the chacham takes an idea from the tzaddik, he should take it as this like source of life, that it's being given as. Like that's the proper way. It's instructions to how a chacham should learn from a tzadik, which is to take not just the idea, but to take the entire like life that's being given through this idea. And then Chaim's addition to this idea is, why does it say nefashos plurals? Because there's going to be many different instances of these like life-giving things in the chacham's fruit. Yeah, Tamar.
So just line.
Yeah, Isaiah, go ahead.
I was saying it more like that. The second half is telling a person that the smart move to do, like the move that a chacham would do, is to listen to the tzadik and take the peirush and not leave them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what's the nefashos?
The nefashos is it's emphasizing to you that the peirush are like an eight time.
Okay, yeah. So that is emphasizing the idea from before. Okay, fine. Yeah. I is there a reason why you're favoring your interpretation over mine? Because mine includes yours. I'm also saying the chacham should take the should take the fruits of the tzadik, but what I'm saying is that there's a way to take the fruits, just to take them as nefashos.
No, it's not different. I guess I had been just envisioning the audience slightly differently. It's like someone who is maybe going to listen to a tzaddik or maybe not. But I think your idea just does apply over mine.
Okay. Yeah, Tamar.
So are you saying that the nefashos is kind of like parallel to the Eitz Chaim? It's something like that, like that they should be taking the whole it's a chacham thing to do, to take the whole philosophy from the tzaddik?
That's what I understood Isaiah to be saying. Isaiah, is that what you were saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, and the audience then is like a student who's learning something from a tzaddik.
Yeah, I think it's specifically a chacham student, you know. Because I just don't know if someone who's not a chacham will be able to take that from the tzaddik.
Okay, and then by chacham, do you just mean like someone on a high level, sort of?
Someone
like
who
not the chacham as
a good receiver of knowledge, like Rashi said that we read earlier, Baal Shmua, someone who can like really listen and receive it well. You know, not necessarily even a creative thinker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So they should be looking to take the whole system of ideas from the person.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Or if you want to say it like this, they should be drawing like their own nefesh from that. I mean, see, I still, even with Chaim's answer, I still am bothered by the plural. I like Isaiah's idea in general, but I'm bothered by the plural here. Yeah. Okay, let's, in the remaining time, okay, I think these are good approaches, except one. No. See, I have to shoot down Michael's idea violently because I think it just is, even though it's a true, there's a true idea in the first half in the two ways he's saying it. It's just not a coherent idea to me, and also just is not what Mishlei says. That's what I'm going to maintain. And look, Michael is entitled to learn in his own way. And I'll tell you the other thing, Michael, if you read this idea in Shir HaShirim, I would be much more open to this idea, because Shir HaShirim uses very, very loosely like associated metaphors to convey very deep ideas about a derech HaChaim, to the point where it doesn't even make sense. Like it's like mixing metaphors and like speaking in poetic caveman talk and giving you ideas that are not practical. Like that's a very Shir Shirim type thing. And there's plenty of botanical mashalim for you to gobble up there, but not in Mishlei, not that I've seen in my 20 years of learning Mishlei. So that's why I'm against it. Okay. 22 years. 22
one second. That's what I don't understand about your criticism. Meaning, on the one hand, you're saying that it's flowery and not pragmatic, and on the other hand, you're saying that it's snarky and insincere. But
no,
like,
you said the second half is being snarky. You said the second half is being snarky.
No. I said it's almost a joke because it's the practical bit. Meaning, if you focus on the simple purity, beauty of like a tzaddik being the fruit of the tree of life that gives off the fruit of the tree of life to create more fruit of the tree of life, that's all nice and beautiful. But as a chacham, what do you do with that? You acquire nefashos. Very practical. I don't know why you dislike this idea so much.
I shall have to meditate on it. Okay. All right. I want to read the Rabbeinu Yonah just to show how this is a very, very different idea from the way we always take tzadik and chacham, I think, if I'm reading it correctly. Pri tzadik eitz chaim v'hem banav. So first of all, many of the Mefarshim take the peirush as ideas. Okay, so for example, Yosef Kimchi is Devarav him Hapri, his words are the Pri. The Meiri says a bunch also. Okay, whatever. A lot of them say that it's the Pri is what he says. Okay, but the Rabbeinu Yonah says Pri is him banav, is his children. Okay, his children are an eitz chaim. Why? Ki tzadik yochiach banav mina urav. The tzadik will rebuke his sons from their youth. V'yischakim, and he will be wise l'shacharu musar, to give them early discipline. V'yagadlenu b'tochachas chaim, and he will raise them with the rebuke of life. As it says, educate the youth according to his way, and even when he grows old, he won't deviate from it. Okay, so tzaddik raises good kids. Okay, then he says, it's possible for the tzaddik shalonis asik belimud chachma, that it's possible that the tzaddik does not engage in the learning of chachma, but only in the correction of action, like perfecting his actions. And he will not be able to draw people to accept his rebukes. But his children, Shem Tachas Yadav, who are under his dominion, Udvarav Nishmaim Lahem, and will listen to his words, Yadrichem B'derech Chachma. He will be able to guide them on the way of Chachma. V'yagadlim B'nei Urehem, and he'll be able to raise them from their youth. Aval HaChacham Shedvarav Nishmaim, but the Chacham whose words are listened to, because he works on chachma, lokech nefashos, he'll acquire souls, umoshech libos b'nei adam l'derech chaim, and he'll draw people into the way of life, umevi hadvarim b'libam b'chachmasao, and he will bring the words into their hearts with his chachma. So this is portraying the chacham as superior to the tzaddik. He's saying the tzaddik focuses on good actions, and he will be able to raise his kids because he'll be able to rebuke them. He has them from a young age, and they're under his dominion, and he'll be able to raise them well. So his fruit will be an eitz chaim, but the chacham will go beyond that. And since he has access to chachma, he'll be able to persuade people and acquire even like adults, like to the proper derech chaim. So that's definitely saying that the chacham in this case is on a higher level than the tzaddik, and more importantly, our definition of tzaddik always presupposes that it's a further development of chacham. He's saying, Rabbeinu Yonah is saying that the tzaddik can be someone without development in chachma, and this is the second time I've seen Rabbeinu Yonah say this, and so I begin to think that Rabbeinu Yonah does have a different theory of chachma than we do, even though I allegedly got my idea of chachma of tzaddik and chacham from Rabbeinu Yonah, but I really got it from Rabbi Moskowitz, who got it from Rabbeinu Yonah, so we'll blame him. So the question is, what's the idea according to this? Like I see the distinction, but what's the what is the practical takeaway here? In other words, let me just explain why this is a strong question. So is it telling the tzaddik is going to raise his kids well no matter what, okay? And the chacham is presumably going to be guiding people through tochacha. So who is this really for? Sorry, Ariel?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just to get the idea clearly one more time, like the meaning, according to Rabbeinu Yonah, you have the tzaddik who's just raising his kids properly. Like, what does it mean? What does that mean? He's raising his kids properly.
He's giving them tochacha from their youth and educating them according to their way, and then they won't deviate from it.
And the chacham is doing what?
Chacham is persuading people through chachma to live the right lifestyle. So he can do it even not during their youth, and even if they're not under his dominion. Yeah, Tamar?
Maybe like a half idea towards what this could be telling you practically.
Yeah.
It sounds like the tzaddik has a different methodology than the chacham. He's right, like he's doing good actions, but he's not necessarily super involved in chachma.
Yeah.
And that maybe has a lack of influence over people. Like maybe that's what's being emphasized. I mean, I know he kind of says that and then he goes on, but like maybe that's the thing that's being drawn as a distinction.
Right. Yeah. So is the message then that the tzaddik should work on chachma? Like, is that the takeaway?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure why his practical goal would be to influence people through tochacha.
Yeah.
But if he wanted to do that, then maybe he can't influence people just with his actions. He has to get some chachma to like engage them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely getting that sense from Rabbeinu Yonah. Yeah, I just I'm not satisfied. Yeah, Ariel?
I mean, can you just simply say that, according to the Rabbeinu Yonah, when you rebuke your kids, you're kind of rebuking them based off of their, actions or through their, Meaning like it's kind of like a reaction to their like emotions or like their psychology, but it's not really like getting to like the chachma for why you shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, the interesting thing, I was thinking the same thing, but the interesting thing is that Rabbeinu Yonah doesn't seem to say that that's a liability. In other words, like if he said, see, what I would think is the case is like, let's say this tzadik raises these kids with tochacha. So they'll grow up with the good midos and good actions. But let's say like, they have kids that are problematic and they need to use chachma. Since they didn't really get the training in the chachma, then they're going to be lacking, So I would think that like, like the tochacha is lacking. The Rabbeinu Yonah is implying that the tochacha is lacking because it's not based on chachma, but he doesn't seem to be highlighting that.
Can you say that one more time? Sorry, I'm not getting it.
That you're trying to point out that there is a lack in the tzadik's tochacha because it's not based on chachma.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about like, I mean, the question really is why is Rabbeinu Yonah using the term kid?
Well, because he's saying that's what pre means.
Right. I mean, like, it could, never mind. I have to think about it more.
Okay, sure. Chaim?
Yeah, I was just thinking, as for like the audience of the pasuk would possibly be people who the chacham and the tzadik are talking to.
Okay.
Somebody who's getting tochacha from, one of these people. Like it's very easy to like see tochacha as like something very personal or something that like, something to put you down. But if they can frame it in a way that like they're doing it because they see what's best for you and because they know what's best for you, then maybe it can help. So
yeah, it's definitely a good idea. I'm just not seeing that in the Rabbeinu Yonah. And this is kind of a question I have on the Rabbeinu Yonah. Like, I don't know if that's the type of thing that he would tell us or if he would leave us to figure it out on our own. I'm not sure. Okay, there are lots of other good ideas here, but I think we are getting to the end of our time. So let's just do a quick recap here. So we had Isaiah's idea, which is that it's really about the nature of a tzaddik's teaching. Okay, that the tzaddik's teaching is even in every fruit. It pulls an entire tree of life along with it, and because that's how the tzaddik thinks and lives, and a chacham should seek out that fruit which has life in it, but he should seek it out in a way where he's like getting the actual life. My idea, which was a development of Ariel's idea, is that the tzaddik who thinks systemically in terms of each member of the system's development and the continuity of the system as a whole will strive to teach in a manner that develops his students into independent thinkers, i.e., the fruit he gives is being given for the seeds. Sorry, not only for the nourishment, but for the seeds that will yield a new generation of fruit trees and continue the circle of life. Okay. And I think that's why fruit is a good example, because fruit is the thing you eat, but it's also the thing that grows the next tree. The chacham, on the other hand, who only receives ideas, will teach in a manner which places the emphasis on giving over ideas and winning people over to the truth as he sees it, which is more limited than the teaching of the tzaddik. Ayala?
Okay, so the way you're describing the chacham again here, as only receiving ideas, I guess I have two questions kind of. One is like, where is that premise from? Maybe you explained it like at the time that we were going over it, but like, is that the case? Like, I feel like chacham usually is able to like think of other future consequences.
Oh, sorry, you said two things?
Yeah, I guess you could answer that one first, and I'll see if I still have other questions.
So I'll just read the Rashi again. So Yishma Chacham v'Yosef Lakach, the Chacham will hear Mishlei and get teachings. V'Navon Tachbulus Yikneh, and the Navon will get strategies. So Rashi here says Chacham ze Bal Hashmua. This is someone who has heard ideas, and Navon is Musaf al Chachma al Chacham. He is superior to the Chacham. Shiodeh lahavin davar mitoch davar umosif al shmuaso. The Navon adds to his shmua. The Chacham just is a bal shmuos. He has things that he's heard, and then that's the. I think I quoted this also in Devarim, Rashi on Devarim 1:8 recently. No, not 1:8, 1:13. Havu lechem chacham anashim chacham unavonim. What are chachamim? What does kasufim mean? Hold on, chachamim. Okay, whatever. This is the part where he says, Zohi Sheshal Arios as Rabbi Yossi. Ma bein Chachamim and Nevonim. What is the difference between Chachamim and Nevonim? Chacham dome l'shulchani ashir. A Chacham is compared to a rich money changer. Kishmevin lo dinarin liros. When they bring him money to examine, roeh, he examines them. Kisheimevin, and when they don't bring him, yoshe v'toeh, he sits and does nothing. Navon dome l'shulchani tagar. A Navon is comparable to a merchant money changer. Kishmevin liros, when they bring him money, roeh, he sees. Kisheimevin, and when they don't bring him, hu machazer maybe he goes out and brings in his own. So this is where I get the idea that a chacham is a dependent learner, that he can get ideas from other people and think about them, but he can't generate chachma on his own. Whereas a navon is someone who can get ideas and he could generate, and he could be like a creative thinker.
Okay, yeah, so that answers that. I just I guess what Tamara was saying before, flows more with me with the idea of the tzadik is someone who's thinking systematically, and he wants to create people who could contribute more to society or their own selves or whatever. But
yeah,
do you think the chacham is more invested, I guess, in his ego in this case, and that's why he's looking at it in this limited way? Because if he teaches these people, they may become better than him or whatever.
Oh, so it's possible that that's the case, but I don't see that as a feature of the chacham. I think if anything, I would say the chacham is more focused on the chacham is limited in to the particulars because he's not seeing things in a systemic way. So he's focused on particular ideas and particular benefits he gets from teaching particular students, and the tzaddik, and this gets to Ariel's question, which I still want to think of, is what limits the chacham? Why can't he think of things in terms of the tzaddik? I still need to think about that. I just don't think he can see. I don't think he can. Yeah, I'm not sure why, but I wouldn't say he's doing it for egotistical reasons.
Is that not what usually limits the chacham? Based on the way that I have thought of it in the past, is that the tzaddik is able to think outside the big circle that you showed.
Right. Yeah, but I don't know if it's the ego that limits him or if it's the level of knowledge that limits him.
Why don't you want to say ego?
Why don't I want to say ego?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that the way I conceive of the development right now is it's not just a matter of let's say you had someone who is an anav, okay? Let's say he was raised as an anav and just by nature he's an anav. I don't think you can skip the level of chacham and just get to tzaddik. I think there's an intellectual development that has to take place where you can start seeing things in terms of systems. And it's true that the ego will be an obstacle to that, but I don't think that is the only obstacle. I think that, and I don't know if it's just me wanting to be down the kafzchus on the abstract or archetypal chacham, but I don't think that that's always the limiting factor. But I do want to think about it. It is a possibility, though.
I personally, I know a lot of, they're just in the workforce. There are a lot of chachamim out there who understand the game or the nature of business, but they limit their, I've seen it firsthand. They purposely don't want to, seek out other opportunities because of their ego. They do have some sort of thought. I'm just wondering, does that not make them chachamim? They're smart in their own world, and they see the consequences that benefit them in the long term. But at the end of the day, they don't see the bigger picture. They don't see, and I think a lot of times you do see the ego play a role.
It could be. I'm not sure. Right. Yeah. Okay, so I think those are some good ideas. I wish we could. Oh, and then there's the Rabbeinu Yonah's idea, which we don't really know the practical implication of. That it's talking about the tzaddik who only is able to do tochacha to his kids because the tzaddik is limited by his lack of involvement in limud. So he can affect his kids because that's not through chachma, and that's when they're learning, when they're young and they're under his dominion. But he won't be able to affect other people. But only the chacham can really affect other people.
Can I actually answer that?
Sure.
Can you maybe say that there are? It's funny he said he's only limited by like people like his kids. Maybe you could say that like it's not necessarily just his kids. It could just be people who he knows. People who he's comfortable with the interaction and he kind of knows them as like a person, so he's able to use. Because like the question that I'm dealing with is like I don't necessarily think the chacham and the tzadik like have inherently flawed idea about tochacha. I just think that there's maybe like in terms of maybe how they approach the world in relation to their tochacha, like the tzaddik, like he's limited because he's only surrounded by specific people and he understands their psychology, but maybe he's not at the point where he's able to like interact with other people for whatever reason. He's not able to like break through that barrier. And I mean, somehow
I see how you're extending the Rabbeinu Yonah's idea to that, but the Rabbeinu Yonah, that's not what the Rabbeinu Yonah is actually saying. He's saying it's davka, the kids, because it says pri, and pri means banav, and it's davka because they're under his control, and he rebukes them from youth. So what you're saying is not what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, but it might be inspired by Rabbeinu Yonah. But it's definitely not what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying.
What does his control mean?
They're 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old kids, and he can punish them. He can take away privileges.
He doesn't do whatever. So it doesn't mean like even his kids who are grown-ups?
No. Oh. No, specifically not. He even uses the term, he gives them discipline when they're young, and he raises them with tochacha. And chanach l'na'ar al pi darko, l'na'ar al pi darko. He's very emphatic.
Maybe what Rabbeinu Yonah means by that is that the tzaddik, because he knows the right way to be, he can instruct those that are willing to look at all of the manifestations of how he is on a day-to-day basis. But only the chacham, who understands why you should be a certain way, can explain that to people that aren't interacting with that.
I would grant that in the same. I would grant that in the same way that I'm granting what Ariel's saying. I think that is definitely implied by what the Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, but that's not how he's reading the pasuk, because he's saying pri Heim banav, ki tzadik yochich banav min ne'urav, vis chakim l'shacharo musar, the yegadlenu, using all these terms about like they're young, he's raising them, he does it early. Chanach l'na'ar bidarko. So I think it definitely is like what both of you are saying is true. That's just not how Rabbeinu Yonah is reading the pasuk. And he says,
I am talking about the
banav shem tachas yado, that they're under his hand. Yeah.
Right, meaning the people that naturally, biologically are emulating the activities of the tzaddik will be a tzayim, like they'll get all of the byproducts. Right. But that tzaddik, he won't be able to impress this upon a classroom of 20 people that he meets for an hour a week.
Right.
That's a chacham job. The tzaddik can't do that. He just acts like a tzaddik. He can't express it in a way that will be lasting the way chachma can be.
Right. And I, again, just to amplify what you're saying, Michael, is that that people can be influenced by a tzaddik's behavior. Like let's say like they work with him or something like that. They might see him and like admire it and stuff like that, but it really just doesn't have that same power because, it's only going to be as strong as his influence. Let's say like they stop working with him, it's going to wear off. Like, because it's not internalized.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is also, to bring it back to Abraham, what we say happened to the nefashos that he grabbed in Haran, that they all left after Abraham, the charismatic leader, was gone. That's a good point. And only his children followed in the path of the tzaddik.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. He also says it in another puzzle. I'm not going to find it. Yeah. Tomorrow, last question for now, and then we're going to end tonight.
Okay. Yeah. Just a little development on what everyone is saying. I think maybe you could say that the according to Rabbeinu Yonah, the practical ramification is about like how to give tochacha and what is and isn't effective.
Okay, that's good, right? Meaning that that if the tzaddik thinks that he can, look, I'm so successful with my kids, like, maybe I can be a teacher of adults or whatever. Like, no, like it's two different spheres. Like you argue with your kids, no one's going to take that away from you, but it's a different animal you're working with when you're trying to influence adults.
Yeah, I mean, not going into exactly what it's teaching about how to influence adults or anything like that, but just that there are these two paradigms is a practical information.
Yeah, all right, that's good. That's a good practical implication. I like that. Okay, good pasuk. There's a lot more here. I wish we could have done these other mufarshim, but we got some good ideas. And there's a great story in the Sefer Chukah. I just got to read the story. Sorry. He just tells. I'm not even going to say the moral of the story. He says, Chacham echad matza kasuv b'sefer hachachmos ki ilanos yesh v'hodu. So a chacham found in a certain book that there are trees in India. Umisha ochel mipiriam lo yamus. Someone who eats from their fruit will not die. V'chashav kasuv kamashmalan. He took the pasuk literally. He took the book literally. Halach lo lamelach. He went to the king. Gila ozno b'davar, and he told the king about it. Amr lo. The king said to him, Kach mamon ulech lasham v'tavim mi'apri li ulach. Go take this money, go to India and get the fruits for me and you. Cain asa, so he did it. Halach lodu, he went to India. Ra'asham beis hamidrash, he saw a beis midrash there. Nichnas v'shal mizakin echad, he went and he asked the zakin, Ana haim ha'ilanu she'ochel mipiriam lo yamus lolam. Where are these fruits that if you eat from their tree, then you'll live forever? Amru lo, chachme hodu haim ha'ilanos. They said to him, the sages of India, they are the trees. Va'pri, and the fruit, chachmasam, is their wisdom. Umishi alamdu mehem, those who learn from them, lo yamus la'olam haba. They will not die in olam haba. Ki zos ena misa la'chachamim. Because that is, I think this is a typo. I think, that it means is like that's really the death that chachamim are concerned about. Ki al olam hazeh kibes kala la'chachamim. This world is like a jail for chachamim. Tzadikim and for tzadikim, ukagon gan eden l'rishayim, and it's like gan eden for rishayim. So I thought that was an amusing story, and it's the only story I've ever seen where like the chachamim are praising the sages of India. I'm curious to know who he was talking about, but okay, have to be for another time.
Which they should. Those guys are cool.
They are. Yeah. Some say that's the Bnei Abraham. That's a conspiracy theory. Yeah.
That's true.
I wonder if
the
Brahmins. Yeah.
I wonder if that king's servant ended up going back home.
Yeah. Well, if you got
I don't know if that would have been a smart move.
Yeah, avoid the king. Okay, good cheer tonight, guys. Thanks for learning, and Blinetta, see you next week.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.